Welcome to the Virginia Civics and Economics Lecture Series. At the end of each slide, there will be a 5-second delay. Use this time to complete your notes. When you are done, push play and move on to the next slide. This presentation will begin in 5 seconds. Welcome to Virginia Civics and Economics Lecture 4.2 on the legislative process, and let's talk about the most popular people in the United States, the U.S. Congress. They have an 11% approval rating. That means 11% of all Americans actually like what they're doing, yet 96.4% of them are reelected every 2 years. Wait, say what? Or, huh? How is that even possible? How do we reelect 96% of the people in Congress if only 11% of the nation thinks they're doing a good job? In other words, why do people vote like this? Are we even sure that we know what Congress does? Well, there may be a reason why people vote like this, and it might have something to do with the power of the United States Congress. With that said, let's go to the next slide. There are several valid reasons for this strange voting paradox, but one of the bigger things is the role of Congress itself. Unlike the rest of the federal government, when Congress acts, it impacts all Americans all the time. The formal powers of Congress are limited by the Constitution of the United States. We call the Constitution a limiting document. The only limits that exist are the ones in your own mind, unless you're Congress. Unlike the other two branches of government, we specifically state in the Constitution what Congress can and cannot do. Generally speaking, elected officials write laws and take action in response to problems or issues. Somebody in Congress says, hey, we need to do something on a national level in order to change the way our country functions. In exchange for that power, committees within Congress and floor debates allow officials the ability to publicly state their positions. Why do we make people in Congress do that? Individuals and interest groups help shape legislation through fundraising, letter writing campaigns, position statements in the media, and meeting with candidates. The whole thing looks like this. We, the people, want our members of Congress to do certain things that will impact all of us. So we, the people, need to know what our members of Congress are thinking as they go through that process to make the laws that will impact all of us. We need to know something else as well. Citizens, including students, can learn the importance of the legislative process through simulations, both in the classroom and via regionally sponsored model congresses. You'll get to experience this. And it's important that you experience it because one day you may need to impact your own member of Congress to do something or not do something that will impact all Americans. Go to the next slide. How specific are the powers of Congress? Real specific. The Constitution provides 27 express powers to Congress, and they are lay and collect taxes, duties, and imports, borrow money, regulate commerce, establish rules of naturalization and bankruptcy, coin money, regulate its value, and fix standards of weights and measures, provide for punishment for counterfeiting money, establish post offices and post roads, promote the progress of science and useful arts, create federal courts inferior to or below the Supreme Court. Those are our federal district courts, trial courts. They are known as courts of original jurisdiction. Define and punish pirates and offenses against the laws of nations. Declare war. Raise and support armies. But here's the thing, every 2 years, Congress has to agree to raise a new army. Provide and maintain a navy. Make rules for the government and regulation of land and naval forces. Provide for calling forth of the militia to execute the laws of the United States. Provide for the creation and control of the militia and draft legislation covering Washington, D.C. and all other federal property. But here's the thing. Some of these powers are more powerful than others. Take, for example, regulating commerce. As long as something crosses state lines, Congress has the power to regulate it. That is almost everything that happens in this country. Congress uses the Commerce Clause to make a broad reach over how it passes laws that impact all Americans. Congress has a lot of specific power. Go to the next slide. So Congress is specifically allowed to do certain things. But in order to do those things, Congress has to be allowed to do other things as well as a lawmaking or legislative body. So we have implied and non-legislative powers. The implied powers of Congress are used to carry out the powers expressed in the Constitution, and we do this through the Elastic Clause. That's right. These powers include making laws which are necessary and proper for executing Congress's power, and we call that the Elastic Clause. Some examples include requiring a draft, creating a national bank, and providing for a minimum wage. Congress is expressly allowed to raise an army. Well, who's going to be in that army? We have to also imply that Congress has the power to draft or take people against their will and make them join the army so that they can raise an army. That is an implied power, the draft, that we are able to say exists because of the express power to actually have an army. Congress also has non-legislative powers. These are powers that are not related to passing laws. The House of Representatives has electoral powers, as they elect the president if no candidate secures a majority during the election. The 25th Amendment allows for Congress to approve a candidate for a vacant vice president position. And Congress has the power to propose constitutional amendments and remove a president through a process of impeachment and conviction. So, Congress has a big check on the executive branch through its non-legislative powers. Then there's this. Executive powers within Congress include the ability to conduct investigations on issues and oversight of the executive branch. This is a congressional committee. It works like this. Congress is going to pass laws, and because of it, it has the right to make sure that the executive branch is doing exactly what it's supposed to do under the law. And Congress is allowed to investigate things as it decides whether or not it's going to pass a law. Go to the next slide. Like everything else dealing with Congress, the Constitution specifically sets forth how a bill becomes a law. So let's look at the legislative process. We start in the legislative body of origin. In other words, a bill is introduced by a senator or a representative, either in the United States Senate or in the House of Representatives. But only a member of the House can submit a spending bill. If the United States is about to spend money, that bill needs to start in the United States House of Representatives. Once the bill is put in, the bill is discussed by a congressional committee. That is a group either of senators or House members who discuss specific issues within Congress. The committee discusses the bill, listens to testimony about the bill, pros and cons about the bill, and submits the bill for a vote if they think that the bill should be voted on by the whole body of the House or Senate. If yes, the bill is calendared for a vote. It's debated on the floor of either the House or the Senate, and it's amended if needed and voted on. Once that's done, we send it across the hall to the second legislative body. If it started in the House, it's going to the Senate. If it started in the Senate, it's going to the House. A bill is discussed by a congressional committee in the second legislative body, and then, if the committee likes it, it's calendared for a vote. It's the exact same process twice. And if the second legislative body votes on the bill, it's submitted to a joint committee only if the two bills, the one bill in the House and the other bill in the Senate, look different. If they look different, it goes to a joint committee of senators and House representatives, and they come up with the final bill, which is sent to the president to be signed into law or vetoed. Go to the next slide. This sounds complicated, but when you look at an example of the legislative process, it's straightforward. Let's start in the House of Representatives, where a spending bill is introduced by Congressman McTire. Remember, only a member of the House can submit a spending bill, and that bill is discussed by a congressional committee. In this case, the Appropriations Committee discusses the bill, listens to testimony, and submits the bill for a vote if they agree on it. Appropriations is the committee that says, hey, all this money needs to be spent in a certain way by the executive branch. If they like what they've got, they'll calendar it for a vote. It's debated on the floor of the House, it's amended if needed, and voted on. And then it goes across the hall to the Senate. The bill is discussed by the Senate Appropriations Committee, which does the same exact job as the House Appropriations Committee. And if they like what they have, they calendar it for a vote. It's the exact same process. If the same exact piece of legislation comes out of both houses, we're good to go. If not, it's submitted to a joint committee if necessary for reconciliation, and then it's sent to the president to be signed into law or vetoed. Go to the next slide. The United States Congress is charged with passing laws that will be enforced and executed by the President of the United States and interpreted by the courts. But Congress can do other things that impact this country. Congress can pass legislation that is not designed to become law or signed by the President. Why would Congress do that? Well, it all depends on what Congress is trying to achieve. There are three types of non-legal legislation. Joint resolutions. Those are a statement of each house on an issue. They are approved just like making a law, except that a resolution proposing a constitutional amendment requires a 2/3 majority of both houses and is then submitted to the states. So you've already seen a joint resolution in action. Congress proposes an amendment to the Constitution, and it uses the same lawmaking process as it was going to make a law. But instead of giving that bill to the president to sign, that bill is then sent out to the states so that they can decide whether they're going to ratify the amendment to the Constitution. Another example of a joint resolution: war is declared by U.S. Congress has the express power to declare war on behalf of the United States, and they do it through a joint resolution. Concurrent resolutions state the sentiment of each house individually and allow for certain administrative actions. For example, down with USA. Certain countries don't like us very much, and they do things to provoke Congress. And Congress's response, instead of declaring war, is a resolution that says, hey, we've looked at what you've done, other country. Not so much. We are upset with what you're doing, and we would like to see action against you. And then there's other concurrent resolutions, like this is Mo Johnson National Day because Mo Johnson did a great thing, and we want to honor Mo on behalf of a grateful nation. Finally, we have simple resolutions, and they deal with administering each respective House of Congress. In other words, these are the rules that Congress must follow as they make laws on behalf of the country. An example is a resolution about the rules of voting for a law. There's nothing in the United States Constitution that says how Congress is supposed to vote or what the procedure is, so Congress has to make those rules on their own. Go to the next slide. Now you know the power of the United States Congress, and you already know that Congress is one of three branches of government that help protect life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness at the federal level. But you also learned about federalism, and you know those state governments are out there as well. So now we need to determine whether the state governments exist for the same reason as the federal government. Elected officials in Virginia state government write laws and take action in response to problems or issues. Sounds familiar. And individuals and interest groups help shape legislation. Also sounds familiar. But government exists at the state level to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of Virginia citizens. And political parties often work together to further that goal. What does that mean? At the national level, the political parties do not agree about what government should do in order to protect your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. At the state level, the political parties generally agree about what needs to be done to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of Virginia citizens. For example, that is a Democratic governor at the podium, and behind him are Republicans and Democrats who all came together to deal with a state safety issue. In this case, it was gun safety. The issues are different at both levels of government as well. The primary issues in the legislative process at the state level include education. Virginia promotes an informed and engaged citizenry. We do it through the Virginia Department of Education, who tells us what to teach you, and the state provides state universities, colleges, technical schools, even community colleges, all to promote an informed and engaged citizenry. We also have public health and safety. Virginia promotes and protects the health of its citizens. We do it through things like the Virginia State Police, who keep us safe on the roads. We do it through the Virginia Department of Health. We do it through mine inspectors. We do it through a slew of people who are all charged with protecting our public health and safety. We also protect the environment. Virginia protects its natural resources. For example, the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, or VIMS, which is a part of the College of William and Mary, a state college, works to protect and promote the health of the Chesapeake Bay. Then there's transportation. Virginia is primarily responsible for keeping our roads safe and up to date, and the way that we do that is through the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT. Well, the big issue between Republicans and Democrats in state government is how much are we going to pay to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of Virginia citizens. We figure all that out through our state budget. The budget is prepared by the governor. This is how much it will cost to promote and protect the health, safety, and welfare of Virginia citizens. And then we approve a budget biannually, or every 2 years. When we approve that budget, we need to raise revenue. And we do that through levies, through collecting taxes, and even through running a state lottery. Go to the next slide. Just like Congress on the federal level, things here on the state level start at the legislature. The Virginia legislature is the General Assembly, which includes the House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate. That House of Delegates can trace its history all the way back to the House of Burgesses, which is the original form of representative government here in North America. In other words, our government is over 400 years old. The legislative process in the General Assembly is a little different than what we see at Congress. A member submits a proposal to the Division of Legislative Services, which is a nonpartisan or non-political part of the General Assembly. They check on the constitutionality of the bill. Is the law you're trying to pass legal under the Virginia Constitution? And they draft copies of the bill. The bill is then introduced. Either body can introduce any bill. It's not like in Congress where spending bills have to start in the House of Representatives, and it's submitted to a committee who holds hearings, they vote, and they report on the bill to the originating body. The bill is debated on the floor. The bill is read out to the entire body on 3 separate days. It's debated and it may be amended on the second reading. The bill is voted on by the full originating body, and if the bill is approved, the bill goes to the other house to go through the same process. And as you know, just like in Congress, if the bill is different, a committee resolves the differences. Then the bill is sent to the governor, who is the executive in Virginia, and the governor can sign it into law, amend it, and return it to the General Assembly for approval, veto it, and return it to the General Assembly. It can be overridden by a 2/3 vote of both houses, or the governor can take no action and the bill becomes law without the governor's signature. So there are certain differences, but in other words, same old thing, but a different day. The legislative process in Virginia is very similar to what we see in the United States Congress. And bills are effective on the first day of July, following adjournment of the regular session, unless another date is specified or under other special circumstances. Unlike in Congress, the members of the General Assembly, they're part-timers. Your name, the part-timer. This is not their full-time job. They come from all over the Commonwealth to Richmond for 60 days each year, or 30 days if that's what they want to do on the second year, and they get all of the business of the Commonwealth done in one shot. That's it for this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.